Hello everybody, it's Julia here from the Highly Sensitive Tarot, and it's a really dark and gloomy, rainy, miserable day here in the UK, so I thought this would be a good day to have a go at my shadow work video that I've been wanting to bring to you. So today this video is 6 questions that you can use your tarot cards for to look at your shadow, to use for self-reflection with shadow work. I think this time of year, sort of Samhain time, Halloween time, is a really good time of year to look at your shadow, and I think it's actually a really important practice, something perhaps to do once or twice a year. So today I plan to tell you just a little bit about what shadow work is, and then to go through the 6 questions, and I'm going to show you my answers and the cards that I've pulled for my own shadow work. I shall tell you a little bit about why, but not too much, because obviously it's quite personal and it feels quite vulnerable, I guess, to sit here and tell you about all of my deepest, darkest issues, of which there are many. So anyway, what is shadow work? Well, I've been really strongly influenced by Carl Jung in my life. When I was training to be a mental health nurse, I read, I think, most of Carl Jung's books quite extensively. Some were easier going than others. Some were beyond my small little brain, really. But I had a go and I read them all. So one of the things that I was just constantly fascinated by with Carl Jung was the archetypes that he discussed. And the shadow is one of the core archetypes that Carl Jung sort of coined, really. And he described this as being all of the things that we have repressed, suppressed, hidden and stuffed down, all of the things that sometimes we've even projected out onto other people throughout the course of our life, but generally they're the things that we've hidden within ourselves, or repressed, or stuffed, or just refused to have in our consciousness, if you like. And the reason why is because these are things that usually originate in our childhood, and they're often things that we feel deeply ashamed about or feel bad about in some way. And Carl Jung said that we have like a bag that we drag around over our shoulder, and that we get this bag when we're a child, and it comes about through being told that we're stupid or bad, or not good enough, or any of those things really. And all of those things, all of our fears, all of the things that we feel ashamed of or stupid about, all of those things go in the bag. And obviously as we get older, the bag gets heavier and bigger and harder to drag around, and till really, for some of us, we can't drag it any longer. And you know, that could perhaps be called a dark night of the soul or a breakdown. And I think it's very important, if you're a conscious person, certainly a spiritually minded person, that every now and again you stop and open the bag and have a look inside. And this is quite daunting. It's not for the faint-hearted if you take it seriously, but I think if you are really concerned with your own personal growth, your spiritual maturity, the process of individuation, which Carl Jung described, which is really about becoming our authentic self, then, you know, we have to stop and open the bag and have a look inside from time to time, And I think this helps to lessen our load and certainly gives us a good insight into excuse me, some of the repetitive patterns in our lives, some of the themes, some of the things that we find ourselves constantly going through in a negative way anyway. So these questions, they could be, you could sit down with a deck of cards and you could just draw 6 cards for these questions and just see what comes. Or you could do like I've done and make it a proper practice where you pick a deck and you go through that deck and you pick out the cards quite consciously in a very reflective fashion, and perhaps journal some of the thoughts that you have, and some of the insights that you should hopefully come up with during this process. So the first, and I think really I think really it's something that you should perhaps do once or twice a year, because the answers to these questions, the cards that you might pull, will change over time, and they can really help you to sort of observe your own growth, really. You know, that is what we're aiming for here, really, is personal growth, isn't it? And to highlight to you the areas for continued focus and care of yourself. So the first question is, what is your personal archetype, and why? And for all of these questions, it will be what is and why, and what insights does this archetype, does this tarot card give you? So for me, my excuse me, my personal archetype, and obviously this doesn't have to be your star sign, it doesn't have to be your sun sign, because obviously there's a tarot card for each of the astrology signs, and it doesn't have to be that, because you might resonate more with your moon sign or your ascendant or an entirely different card. But for me, I am a Virgo, and I resonate so strongly with the Hermit. I always have done. This is a consistent theme for me, and I've chosen, actually, the deck that I've chosen to look at my own shadow work is the Osho Zen deck, which is a beautiful deck. I mean, it has some gloriously light cards in it, but it also has some really quite difficult cards that I think are fantastic for shadow work. So that's why I've chosen the Osho Zen deck. But anyway, my card is the Hermit, and when we look at the Hermit here, he's sort of on the edge of a cliff and he's looking out into the unknown, into the darkness. But the Hermit always carries his light within him, and I think that is the thing that I resonate so strongly with, I think, about the Hermit, is that the Hermit's always sort of going around with his lantern and his light, or his own light that he generates within himself, and he's always trying to shine that light into dark corners and understand what's going on, or to make the unconscious conscious, if you like, as well. And I think in the Osho Zen deck, this card, some of the questions that it asks is around what it is to feel alone, because the key word on here is aloneness, isn't it? And for me, the shadow elements of this card are my struggles, really, with trying to balance in my own life my need for solitude and my need for space and aloneness, and that's actually okay, and that it's okay to be alone, and that you don't have to feel lonely being alone. And that's something I've struggled with my entire life. I'm getting better, much better, really. But yeah, this being alone and being lonely are quite difficult things really to bring balance into. So that's something I've struggled with a lot in my life. I did just pick out 2 other cards because actually, even though I've picked the Osho Zen for my shadow work deck for this time, the 2 Hermit cards that resonate the most strongly within me are this one from the Book of Shadows, Volume 2. You can see that there. This is more me, really, to be honest, than the little old man on the cliff. You know, this is real hermit energy here also, isn't it? This is, you know, refueling yourself, re-energizing yourself by having that alone time, that time to study and reflect and be quiet and be still and to kind of nurture yourself, and to learn and to grow. I think they're very hermit-like energies as well. And this one, this one, which is from the Zombie Tarot deck, and I've just always loved this card from the moment I saw it. This is me. You know, there could be a zombie apocalypse going on outside, and I'd be comfy on my sofa with some chocolates, reading a book in my own little world. Quite content really most of the time. So yeah, so that's my personal archetype. So it would be interesting to see or to hear from you what yours might be really. It would be great actually to hear some feedback from people about this video and any cards that you might have chosen for yourself or a deck that you might have chosen for yourself. Now the next question is quite a difficult question for me. It makes me feel quite vulnerable even to talk about it, but it's shadow work, isn't it? It can be brutal. So I actually couldn't pick one card in my typical Julia fashion just for this question, but I've picked 3. The first card is the 10 of Wands, and this is suppression, and I don't know how clearly you can see that because I've purposefully got the room sort of fairly dim really, as this is shadow work, but this is suppression. If you can see there, this person is just completely weighed down and entangled and just, well, they're stuck in a hole, aren't they? You know, they're in a hole, a small hole, but all of this kind of energy within inside them, I think, is what's going on here. It's like it's all spreading out around them like electricity, and it's like energies are building up here under the weight of the suppressing of thoughts and feelings. And this is something I've done a lot in my life. You may have heard me talk before that I was diagnosed with autism when I was 52. And so you can imagine I've done a lot of masking and a lot of hiding in my life, a lot of pretending to be something that I'm not. And so whenever I look at this card, it's quite a difficult card for me really, because I think 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, this was me very much, and I had a breakdown, and everything here that was building up went pop, and I couldn't hide any longer. I couldn't suppress or stuff or hide from who I was and what I needed any longer really. So this card has been a consistent card that I would choose for shadow work for some time. The next card is equally difficult, and this is the 9 of Wands in the Osho Zen deck, and this is exhaustion. And again, this is something that I struggle with constantly, because I also have fibromyalgia, and I was diagnosed with that decades ago, to be honest, many, many years ago. And my battle with fatigue and exhaustion is just one of the most frustrating things that that I cope with in life, really. And, when we look at this card, it's like the person here has so many things that they have to attend to, and so many details and bits and pieces they have to attend to, that they've just become completely exhausted by it. And for a long time, this was me trying to juggle my job, my family, and what I actually needed, until really I got to this point. So yeah, this is still relevant to me. This is still a card that I find difficult to look at, because, do you know, I've just realised I didn't even tell you what the question was properly, did I, for this? And it is, what tarot card do you dislike or get a strong reaction to? I'm sorry about that. I launched straight into the cards without even telling you what the question was. So yeah, what tarot card do you dislike or do you get a strong reaction to, and why? And what opportunities are there for healing and growth within these cards? So yeah, you can see why I would get a strong reaction to these cards, and I've told you why. And the third card that I get a very strong reaction to, actually, is this card here, which is the Page of Swords. And it's this card here is mind. And normally when I think about the Page of Swords, it's quite a nice card, really. It's a card, I always think it's a bit the inner detective. But in this deck here, you can see sort of all the cogs and wheels and levers. And to me, this card just sort of really represents who's in charge here, actually, because, we should be in charge of our own minds. They shouldn't run us. And still, my mind runs me a lot of the time. My mind is a very busy place. It's not often quiet or still. And yeah, something that I struggle with a lot is that my mind runs me, I think. And I'm always looking for ways for it to be the other way round. So there we go. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the question right at the beginning there, but that was, what tarot card do you dislike or do you have a strong reaction to, and why, and what kind of healing opportunities would that give you? I will list the questions in the description box, so you will be able to look at them there. So question number 2 is, what tarot card do you like? What tarot card makes you smile? And where within that card can you see your shadow or your ego really at play in that card? And for me, I've picked Innocence. That is a beautiful card. I love it. It does everything about this card, just screams innocence. This is the Sun card in the Osho Zen deck, and it's just full of that sort of innocent, youthful, well, he's not youthful, is he? He's an old man there, but the vitality of life, the connection with life. And although this card really makes me smile, if we're thinking about it in terms of shadow work, it can also make me feel a bit sad sometimes, because I think I don't spend enough time in this state. This is really being in the moment, isn't it? Being in the present moment and fully engaging in the present moment. And I don't think I really spend enough time doing that. So that can make me feel quite sad sometimes. The next question, question number 4, is, what card represents your feminine side? And is there any opportunities for growth or for healing here? Excuse me. And for that, I picked the Queen of Pentacles. You don't have to pick a court card or a card that relates to your gender at all. You can pick any card that resonates strongly, but to be honest, the Queen of Pentacles has always resonated, and particularly this one here. I don't know whether you can see, but the Queen here, she's just surrounded by flowers. It's like just her mere presence makes things grow, and that's something that actually is a big positive for me in my life, because I love plants, I love the garden, I love nature, and I've noticed over the years, because I've moved house lots and lots of times, I've noticed that everywhere I go, things grow. And every home I've had, I've put huge efforts into my garden, and my garden just, I must be quite green fingered, I think, because wherever I've gone, things grow, and that fills me with an enormous amount of pleasure. So I think also with the Queen of Pentacles, she loves to be at home, really, and so do I. You know, I love my home. It's very important to me that my home feels right for me. So I think essentially, I think at heart, I'm a homemaker. You know, I've always loved to make a comfortable home for everybody. So yeah, the Queen of Pentacles would represent my feminine side, and I suppose if there was room for growth there, it would be perhaps that I need to settle, because although I've moved around a lot and I've made some lovely homes and some lovely gardens, I think the Queen of Pentacles would far prefer to be stable and to be in one place and to not keep moving around. And I kind of seem to have this restless nature that has struggled to settle. So if I had an opportunity for growth and healing, it would be around feeling more stable and secure and more grounded, actually. So the next question, question number 5, is what card represents your masculine side, and why, and where are the opportunities for growth and healing within this card? And oh dear, this card, this is the King of Swords, and this is a really difficult card for me to talk about. I don't know if you can see that clearly here, but the key word on here is control. And I think my masculine side, I think possibly to do with my autism and my fibromyalgia, and some of the way that I've lived my life has meant that I've had to keep a good grip on things and a control of things. And I think I quite naturally want to control my environment, and sometimes even the people around me. I think it's my way of keeping safe and feeling safe. But as you can see in this card here, this is a card of all sharp angles, of squares and triangles, and you know, this bit coming down here, it's just like this sheer focus and the sheer amount of effort that it takes to stay in control. This is something that I work on a lot all of the time, is trying to relinquish control, to look for opportunities where I don't need to be in control, where I don't need to constantly be trying to make my environment feel safe for myself. So yeah, that's a really, really difficult card. As is my last card, actually, but this, you know, this is shadow work, isn't it? As I said, this is not for the faint-hearted. This this can be quite a brutal process, but a very necessary process, I think. So the last question is, what card represents your inner child and why? What needs healing and what might help? And I wouldn't ordinarily pick this card in some other decks, but in the Osho Zen deck, there's just something about the image in this card that makes me feel small, makes me feel vulnerable, I guess, really. And it is the Five of Pentacles, which normally would be about sort of a more material poverty, perhaps, you know, being left out in the cold. But this card, it says the outsider, and I think this quite strongly resonates with the sad shadow part of my inner child. Again, I think possibly to do with having autism and being undiagnosed as a child having autism, and just never ever really feeling part of things, feeling different, feeling like I was always on the periphery of things, always watching and never quite part of things that were going on. And I realised that the chains and the lock here, they're of my own making, you know, they're part of my own shadow, and that actually this child here could probably slip through this gate and go and be part of things if they wanted to, but they choose to stand there and look through the gate feeling vulnerable and helpless and alone. And I think that's how I've spent a lot of my life, really, feeling like I was on the outside of things. And that's a really, really painful energy, actually, to be honest, isn't it? So inner child work has been something that I've given quite a lot of priority to over the years in my therapy that I've had, since the breakdown that I had a few years ago. You know, I've looked a lot at nurturing and sort of, I suppose, reparenting my inner child, if you like, but I can still resonate very strongly with this, and I can still slip back into this kind of thinking sometimes. You know, these days I actually feel much better about the fact that I am different, that I am a bit quirky, that I'm perhaps a little bit nerdy, and that I am different, and that's fine, and I'm much more comfortable with that these days. But there are still situations and circumstances where I can slip back into this kind of vulnerable state, I guess. So there we go. 6 questions for shadow work. As I said, it's made me feel quite vulnerable, even just to talk about these things, and certainly to talk about them on camera. So I will write in the description box the questions, the prompts for the tarot cards. And as I said, this is a video where I would absolutely love to hear from other people. I think this is a really big and important subject, and I think to get these things out, you know, which is what actually the Hermit is very good at doing, as I said, of making the unconscious conscious, of shining a light in all the dark corners. And I think that's what I'm trying to do in this video. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video in some way. I hope it was useful, and I would love to hear any comments or any feedback from anybody about this video. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.